I just showed a house to a person and they are super interested and they love the house. They want to place an offer. Okay, now what? Well, for right now, we're going to use Dotloop.
Yep.
Dotloop is going to be going away for us, and we're going to jump over into DocuSign here very soon. So take the Dotloop piece here. This isn't really what I'm teaching today, but for right now, we do need to know how to use it. Here in another couple months, we're going to be merging over into DocuSign, which is different, but has the same principles essentially. And we will be using the same documents. So the content of this call is going to still be valid. All right. So I need to add a new loop. If you guys can see, it's this blue button up here. A loop in Dotloop just means a new transaction that you're starting and you're hopeful to start it. All we're doing is writing an offer. Our hope is that our offer gets accepted. So we're going to add a loop. It asks me what my property address is. Well, I'm going to use, just because this is a test here, I'm going to use a property I literally just listed yesterday. I have to use this one because the other one wanted to contract in like, what, 24 hours. As I type it in, it auto-populates. Why did it not bring up? Hold on one second. Here we go. This auto-populates. I'm going to click on it. It asks me if I want to import the data. I always want to import the data. The reason I want to import the data is because it's going to save me time. What it does is it'll auto-populate from the listing. I've got the listing pulled up. So like all the important information for the most part will automatically populate. So import. All right. Going through this next step is pretty simple. You just kind of follow the prompts. We continue. There's a drop down. If I'm representing the buyer, what do you think this kind of loop is?
Buyer loop.
Buyer's loop. Continue. Do I want to upload a photo? No, I don't give a crap about what, I know what the house looks like, so don't waste your time. All right, so we are done. We have created the loop. Super simple, right? And some of you are wondering right now, like Michael, you're probably like, what the heck is Dotloop? I have no idea what he's even talking about. It's okay. We'll get you up to speed really quickly on this. It's just a place that we go to store our documents, essentially. And it makes electronic signing a possibility. So in the old days, we used to have to take the documents to the person needing signatures and actually have them sign with ink. Luckily, now our jobs are so easy. We can just do it from our living room, sitting in our underwear. Which I speculate, how many of you are in your underwear right now? Just, yeah.
I'm in the gym, I'll tell you that.
All right. Once we've created the loop, we need to go into it. So we're going to view loop. There are a bunch of documents that auto-populate. I'm not going to spend time talking about all the documents that we must have for submitting for approval. I'm just going to take us through, and we'll see if we have any time at the end, the purchase contract. Purchase contract version 3. If any of you were on the monthly meeting yesterday, our broker, Joanne Figgy, she mentioned that there's a brand new contract out that we're going to start using soon. That's not the one that auto-populates in here, but rest assured, I've taken a look at that new contract and it's almost identical. There are just a few small little minor tweaks. They're not gonna deviate from how you fill out a purchase contract. All right. When I click on purchase contract, it's gonna ask if I want to auto-fill some stuff, which I definitely do. It's gonna make the contract writing a little bit simpler. Now I've gotten a little bit ahead of myself because when it says buyer 1, nobody shows up. I should have already put some information in here. So I'm gonna close out that. I'm gonna go back, and I apologize for this. In the loop, if you scroll about halfway down the page, you're gonna see add person. Currently, all you see right now is listing agent, and that's myself. Well, I need to add another person. So full name, I'm just going to use somebody that I have in my database. Once you start putting the information, you just need their full name and their email address. That's all you need. Don't go crazy about inputting phone numbers, addresses, nothing like that. And then you're going to select the role. So if they're the buyer, you're going to select buyer. Then we're going to add person. For this example, we're just going to have one buyer. We'll say she's a single female looking to purchase her first home. She's super excited, and she doesn't know what's in store for her. I also need to add an agent in here. So let's just add me. So I'm going to represent both sides. I'm going to be the buying agent, or sorry, listing agent. The buying agent is already in there. Add person. Ah, crap. You can't add two people with the same email address. This doesn't really matter. All right. Once I've added the people, then I'm going to go back into the purchase contract. Once I exit out of the purchase contract and go back in, it doesn't give me that autofill option unless I go up here and click autofill. Then it pops right back up. So roles, the buyer, Miss Rebecca, super excited to buy. She's in there. Buying agent is, or sorry, listing agent is myself. And then when the time comes, I'll put myself in as the buying agent as well. All this other information, if I pass by something, it typically doesn't matter and I never use it. Property address. Auto populates. It says Fulton. We want it to say Fulton Road. It's not an apartment or anything, so there's no unit number. Then parcel ID. So this is important to add in there because this is talking like geography within the county. So we want to make sure that we're inputting this. This is the one thing that for some reason does not auto-populate. So you need to go to the listing. For those of you who have seen the MLS, you'll recognize this screen. This is just a listing for a home. The parcel number is down here. So 010, so I just need to remember this, 010129. And I don't have a photographic memory, so the rest of the number is 247. All right, everything else here looks good. Purchase price. I'm gonna kind of talk strategy here because we all know that right now, asking price offers are not winning typically. There are 2,500 homes on the market across the whole MLS. Maybe a hair more as of today. That is the lowest number we've seen historically speaking here in Columbus this time of year. What that means is that sellers are listing the home at a price and then so many buyers are coming through and placing offers that it raises the price up. Me being the great realtor that I am, you guys being the great realtors that you are, you're going to make sure that your buyer is aware of this so that they're not just placing an offer and wasting your time. You're hopefully placing a winning offer. That's what we want to do here. So if my purchase price, so let's say the house is listed at 174.9. Well, if I was to put a purchase price of 174.9, odds are it's probably not good unless it's been on the market for a while and there's something wrong with it. So I'm just going to say I'm going to offer $180,000.00. You kind of write this like a check. You do need to put the dollar sign in there because it auto-populates that way. Earnest money. If you don't know what earnest money is, it's just otherwise known as good faith money. And what it does is tells the other side that you're able to put some skin in the game immediately. So you have an option, and we'll get to this, of inputting your earnest money, which is typically about $1,000. If it's a really expensive house, then you might go $2,000, but it's money up front the client gives you a check once the contract's accepted, and you put that into the brokerage's account. For those of you that just passed the test, I know they had a whole bunch of information about Earnest Money, didn't they, Katie?
Yeah,
You didn't hear what I said, did you?
I did. You said, for those of you that just passed the test.
All right.
We have
So
questions
we're
about
gonna
Earnest
say
Money.
Earnest Money, $1,000. Now for this one, you don't have to put a $sign because it auto-populates this way. It's kind of goofy. Earnest Money does go towards your closing costs. So it's not like you're just handing $1,000 to the other side and never going to see it again, so that you all know. Listing agent, this gives me all my information. Cool. Closing date. Typically, in this market, we close within 30 to 45 days. What I encourage you strongly to do when you're submitting an offer is to pick this thing up and call the other agent and find out when their client needs to close. You want to meet them where they're at. They currently have all the leverage. They need to select you. You're courting them essentially, right? You want to date them. In order to date them, you need to tell them the right things, right? So you need to tell them that you're willing to close when they want to close. They may also require possession post-closing. All that means is that the title goes into your name. You've now bought the home, but they're still going to live in it for a couple of days to help move their stuff out. This is typical in this market. So let's say I called the other agent, told them, hey, we're thinking about submitting an offer. What's your ideal closing time frame? Well, maybe they say a month would be good, 30 days. Okay, cool. Well, today's the 16th. Let's say we're going to go into contract on the 17th if this works out well. So we'll just go August 17th. Buyer one, like I said, I don't need a bunch of information. I just need their name and email address. Offer expiration date. Two forms of thought here. You can either have your client's best interest in mind, or you can be a wuss. I like to put pretty aggressive timelines in here because you want the seller to decide on your offer quickly. You don't want to give them a whole day to decide on this. If you give them a whole day, you're opening the door for more showings to happen. When more showings happen, more offers happen. Then you're up against more competition. So we do need to be strategic here. Now, I will also say a lot of people anymore are writing it into their listings. All offers due by Friday at noon. Please leave open until Saturday at noon. Seller will decide in contact winning bid. So you do have to be cognizant of that, but just pick up the phone again and say, is there a offer deadline, whatever. For me, if we were to actually be filling this out right now today, 1:20 on a Thursday, I know that I still need to get the signatures from my buyer, and that might take a minute. So let's say we were able to get the offer in by 2 or 2:30. I'm gonna probably go next day, 9 a.m. So that gives the seller ample time to sleep on it and to make a decision, but it also rushes them and does not allow any showings the next day. Occupancy date, this is just possession. So as we stated earlier, if they want, let's say 3 days of possession after closing, we're going to give it to them because we're going to give them whatever they want right now. Property includes, I always write the same verbiage in here every single time. And I learned this from my very first offer. So I'm going to take you back 2.5 years ago to my very first offer. I wrote the offer and the agent called me and said, hey, you need to fix the wording on this. And I noticed that you've never done a deal before. So I'm going to help you out this one time. The guy was kind of a, pardon my French, but he was a dick. And he wasn't fun to work with. And he made me feel like crap a lot. I don't want you guys to go through that. So write this into your contracts, okay? Property includes all fixtures viewed in the home on what's today's date? The 16th? Let's just say we saw the home today, 7/16/2020. including all kitchen appliances, light fixtures, and window hardware. What this does is, this is a legal binding document if they were to sign it, and therefore they cannot take or replace any of these appliances or fixtures without your consent. So this protects you, the buyer. This contract is super buyer friendly, meaning there's ample opportunity for the buyer to get out of the contract if something goes awry. So it is a legal binding contract, but there are ample outlets for the buyer to get out of it if something goes bad. Property excludes, I very rarely write property excludes anything unless it's been noted in the listing. So if I go back to the listing, sometimes in the agent to agent comments, you see agent to agent remarks, sometimes it'll say, there are some drapes that are super important to that have family value to the seller. They'd like to take the drapes. So you'll write property excludes drapes. For this listing, it says washer and dryer to convey. So, okay, cool. As a first-time home buyer, I need a washer dryer. So I'm gonna go ahead and write that in. I almost forgot. So window hardware and washer and dryer. Those things will be included. So I'm writing it in so it's known. Once
Hey,
I'm done
Josh,
with,
a question real quick.
yes.
So are you writing also for, now with everybody, they have the Ring doorbells, they have those, you know, the video surveillance things
I
that,
don't write those things in. They are attached to the house. They should convey. I've got a seller that's closing tomorrow, and they were actually asking about that. They've got some security cameras that are
Yeah.
attached to the home. So as a listing agent, I reached out to the buyer's agent, and said, hey, my seller is interested in taking those if your client doesn't want them. And we just reached an agreement that the buyer didn't actually want them, so the seller's going to take them. I don't write those in, but to your point, you probably could do that, and you probably
okay,
should.
I just want to know, yeah.
So next step is the autofill. So you see the address up top. This contract is intense, guys. It's like 14 pages. I'm going to go through it. I'm not going to go read every single line. I'm going to do this at a high level, talking about the things that are necessity, things that you need to know. First step, the date, for some reason of all things, doesn't auto-populate. So auto, fill that in. County, Franklin, parcel number here. Further described as, this is where you even more granular level, you write down a little bit more about the house. So 4 bedroom, 1.5 bathroom home located at 1455 Fulton Road, Columbus, Ohio 43229. Just more like a legal description. Next, you see the price there, purchase price. Okay. Now the line below this, you write it out like a check, like you would a check. For any of those of you who are old enough to remember what a paper check is. $180,000.00. Additional terms and conditions. I'm going to come back to this. This is where you'd put in anything that you might want to, that you might need to. So for instance, Dawn is trying to offer on a house, but the buyer needs to also sell their house. This is where you'd put that terminology that the sale is contingent upon the buyer finding or selling their home. We'll come back to this. Attorney approval. Oh, and by the way, make sure you double check yourself. When you write your purchase price, I had somebody counter, I was a good guy. I had somebody counter me back $100,000 less than what their home was actually listed for, because they wrote 180 instead of 280. They just had a fat finger or whatever. And so I was like, hey, you might want to change that before I make you commit to selling this home at $100,000 loss. Attorney approval costs. These documents are written by lawyers. Our goal as fiduciaries of our clients is to make sure that we are protecting our clients. We are not to say, hey, don't do this, it's stupid. We're just to recommend, hey, you may not want to waste your $500 on having an attorney review this because they are written by attorneys and there's nothing that the attorney will be able to do. Next, financing. It says RB, that's Rebecca Blaylock, that's her initials. It auto-populates for some reason that we're gonna buy this cash. Notice it says financing. Buyer will pay the purchase price in cash at closing. This is a first-time home buyer. She's got $0 to her name. She's gonna have to finance this thing. So we need to uncheck this box. Instead of saying why did it do that? Instead of saying RB there, we need to change that. In order to change it, you highlight the box, you just click on it. You go up here to assign to and click on no one. This one also says buyer. It doesn't have her initials, but just to be safe, click no one. That way, when you send this, it sends electronically to their email, and Dotloop's pretty cool, and DocuSign will be cool as well. It basically leads them through the document step by step on where they need to sign an initial. So there's gonna be no confusion here, and we're not gonna be presenting a cash offer when it's really not a cash offer. As I scroll down, 3.2 says this contract is contingent upon the buyer obtaining financing for the purchase. Okay, that's us. It says buyer here, but it doesn't say RB. We want to make sure that says RB. Next one down, lender pre-qualification. The buyer has delivered. That's where we want her to initial, or will deliver a pre-approval letter. It's my recommendation, very, very strong recommendation, that you always have the buyer's pre-approval letter prior to submitting an offer. You want to show the seller that your buyer can afford the home, and you're going to submit that pre-approval letter right with the contract. So I always click this box here. The loan application will occur within, typically, if you leave it blank, it's going to be 7 days. This is just where the buyer has to communicate with their lender and answer a few questions, submit a few documents. So we'll say 7 days. Say it's going to be a conventional offer, conventional loan, sorry. So different types of loans, for your knowledge. Conventional is the most traditional, and it's the easiest to close. And it's the most desirable among all the loan structures for a seller, because there's less hoops to jump through. FHA, VA, and USDA all have a bunch of hoops that you have to jump through if you're a seller, and so they're not as desirable. When in doubt, try to get your people to go conventional if possible, because their offer will look more appealing. Again, I'm not going to go through every line here. There's too much, and it's all a bunch of legalese. Loan commitment. This is where the lender, you're going to commit basically for the lender that they're going to have the loan approved by a certain amount of time. I typically put 25 days. You might want to write that down if you're taking notes, because the first 3 times I did this, I totally forgot what that number should be. And I had to call my coach, Tabitha, at the time and ask her, and I annoyed her when I could have just written it down. Appraisal contingency. This is just noting, this is common knowledge, that because you're using a lender, it's got to appraise. Appraisal simply means that the lender is going to send a person out there to walk the property, and they're going to value it. If the appraisal comes back at less than, in this situation, $180,000, then we have to renegotiate the purchase price, because the lender's only going to give whatever it appraises for. We can have a whole class on appraisals, I'm sure, and how much those people drive me crazy. We need to provide finance evidence. Tax and assessments, I'll be honest, I've never filled this out once. So all this stuff remains blank. Fixtures and equipment. Now this is where, when we wrote that that thing about all the fixtures stay, that's just literally more clarification about all this list that you see here. These things are all supposed to stay. Fire and smoke alarms, well, duh. Garage door openers and controls, those things are all supposed to stay. You're just re-clarifying that, hey, you're not taking the washer dryer, etc. The following shall be excluded. So if they have those drapes, this is where that would show up. Leased items. So let's say security systems are something that I get asked a lot about. Security systems are typically leased items. So like, let's say you have ADT on your house and there's that cool box that's got a little TV screen that says system armed. Well, that typically is, you can keep it there if you're the seller, or you can take it with you. Sometimes there's like a return bonus that you get through ADT, or you can leave it there, but the buyer is going to have to take on that monthly expense. Inspections and tests. We strongly encourage, this is literally written on here, broker strongly recommends the buyer conduct inspections or tests. It gives a list of the inspections that you have available to you. There's a basic inspection, there's radon, there's mold, there's lead-based paint, there's termite, there's gas lines, waste treatment or well. So let's say they have a septic system out in the country, all kinds of stuff. We're supposed to tell them to protect themselves and get all these things inspected. Now, you can also tell them, because you're a great agent, ahead of time when you first meet with the people, say, hey, you're not going to spend any money at all on me. You're not going to spend any money at all until closing, except for one step. That's going to be the inspection. You pay for that yourself. It's going to be between $300 and $400 typically, and it'll come after they accept the contract. So there you go. There you go. You've warned them. Normal inspection process takes 7 days, or not takes. The window is typically 7 days to get an inspection, so that's a week. Make sure you fill that in, because otherwise you're waiving your right to an inspection, and you don't want to do that, because this is one of those opportunities for your buyer to get out of the contract. You don't want to minimize their amount of opportunities to get out of the contract. As we scroll down, agreement to remedy period. This is when we've got the report back, we've evaluated the report, you've gone through it with your buyer, and you've pinpointed a few things that you want to ask for that are very important. We then have, what I typically write is 3 days. 3 days to reach an agreement with the seller on what they're going to fix. Real quickly, 6.4 here says that if the buyer is not in good faith satisfied with the condition, the buyer may elect to proceed if we can agree to terms on a remedy, or you can terminate. Meaning you can terminate the contract. You have to submit a notice of termination, and that's another formal document. You need to be on time with these things, because again, my first transaction, I thought day one was a different date than the seller did, and I missed my day by I missed my window by a day. And luckily, the guy who was kind of a butthead, he helped me out and said, "We're going to give you some grace on this." So at the end, he wasn't that bad of a guy, I guess. I'm just thinking ill of him because of the way that he worded some stuff. Home warranties. Okay, so 2 lines of thought here. Yes, you want to protect the buyer for a whole year. A home warranty protects the buyer for a whole year on items like expensive mechanical. So let's say your hot water heater goes out within the first 3 months that you live there. Well, dagnabbit, like didn't want to spend $600 on a new hot water heater and labor to install it. So typically a home warranty will only charge you like a $75 service fee and save you, 500 some bucks. So you can ask for home warranties. There are all kinds of different home warranties. If you get to this part and you have questions about them, holler at me. I've got one that I typically use. You hope that your buyer never has to use it, but eventually they will, and it's good protection. That said, in this market, if you're trying to have a real competitive offer, you might leave this blank because it's only $400 or $500 typically, and that's something that the buyer could buy on their own. And you're sweetening the pot essentially for the seller because they don't have to spend that extra money. it's pennies on the dollar if you think about the whole transaction. Lately, I have not been writing home warranties into the contracts, and all my buyers are typically okay with that. I say that with my tongue in my cheek because if the home's been listed longer than 2 weeks in this market, you can probably get away with asking for a home warranty. If a home's been on the market 2 weeks or longer, there's something probably a little wrong with it, meaning either it's not in good shape or it's priced too high. The gas line warranty typically comes with most home warranties anymore. So in this new contract, they've struck this off the contract. Some stuff about the deed, title insurance.
Yeah, so this is not the new contract that we just discussed about?
Sorry?
This is not the new contract, or I thought this is the new one?
This is not the brand new contract. This is just what's in
Okay.
Dotloop. We have not uploaded the new one to my knowledge.
Okay, okay.
And I
that's right.
doubt we will because Dotloop's going away now, or here in a little bit.
Then where are we getting that contract then? Are we just going from the Realtor's site?
Yeah, I will send out the contract that Joanne sent. I think she tried sending it out to the whole brokerage yesterday, but I don't think it went. So I'll send it out after the call. Title insurance. For now, though, you guys can still use this. Don't tell anyone I said that, but you can still use this. Title insurance. The seller pays title insurance. The Alta title insurance policy is kind of like they explain it's the Rolls Royce or the Cadillac of title insurance, as if there's car title insurance. Anyways, basically what title insurance is in case the title company erroneously gave you title without the seller paying off a lien or something, it protects you from having to pay that as the buyer. Yeah, it's just legalese stuff. So the seller pays that. It's typically right around $1,000. So it's kind of expensive. So it's a good thing on the buy side that I don't have to pay for that. Yada, yada, yada is what I'll say here. I do recommend that you learn the contract. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. There is a class that Joanne used to put on, and I know that the board puts on a class on the purchase contract. I highly recommend you taking that class. If at any point during the contract transaction timeline, something gets damaged in the house, it's strongly recommended that the parties retain legal counsel. If something goes wrong with the house during the transaction, it's just best to be transparent with the other side and let them know, hey, by the way, there was a broken sump pump this weekend with that storm, and we had a little bit of water damage. Fortunately, nothing was hurt. We did replace the sump pump. I just want to let you know. That goes over a lot better than the buyer doing their 2-day walk and being surprised by, hey, what's this water all over the place? You didn't tell me about that. Earnest money. I explained what earnest money is earlier. Now you get to see the two options. So $1,000. The earnest money will either be deposited within 3 days after the contract's accepted, or within 3 days after you reach remedy agreement. I typically just do 3 days after contract acceptance because that shows that we're strong and that we're not putting all of our hens in the basket of the inspection. Meaning that in the seller's eyes, we're always fearful about the inspection and people walking away from the house after the inspection. We want to give them this idea that we are not tied to the inspection. We really love this house. We really want this house. So it's kind of a psychological game. I recommend doing this. If we're in a slower market and it's more of a buyer's market, then you might jump down here to the 3 days after remedy. Save your client a little money and time. Earnest money deposit. So, oh, and sorry, I didn't say this, but her initial's right there already. So that's where she'll initial. I'm going to go ahead and click on, I don't know why it jumps me to the top of the deck on contract every time I do that. Sorry, hang with me. Initial. No one. No one. I only want her to initial this one spot right there. I don't want to confuse anything. Earnest Money deposit form. This is where I type in our brokerage name. And so this is the proof that I would submit to the other side after I submit the earnest money. So I would send them just this one page is fine. You can even take a screenshot of it. Check number, so whatever check the buyer pays their earnest money with. And you don't even really need a signature. I don't know why that's on there. And then the date. This talks a little bit about like signatures. Electronic signatures are just the same as ink signatures. FERPTA is basically a buyer or seller who I believe like lives out of the state or out of the country. I've never experienced it. You might with a investor though, I guess. Fair housing laws. It's important that you do tell your sellers and your buyers that we are not to be what's the word I'm looking for? You're not allowed to stereotype based on race, color, religion. Basically, make decisions based on those different differences between us. It's pretty obvious, honestly. Property disclosure, residential property disclosure, we should have that filled out. Property disclosure discloses anything that are opportunities with the house that you couldn't see with your naked eye. So let's say a roof leak that you might not notice when you're in the house, or a basement leak and you didn't notice it because it wasn't raining at the time. Sex offender, if a sex offender resides in the area, you should have access to know about that. It's in the public records. Closing. This is where it auto-populated, so we're going to request a 30-day close. Final verification of condition. This is your final walkthrough. We typically say 2 days. 2 days prior to closing, you walk through and just verify that everything is the same way that you wanted it. Like they haven't taken down a wall while you were gone, or they haven't had a kitchen fire. You're verifying that the condition is good. Also, it gives you a chance to go in and take measurements if your buyer's looking to like start buying some furniture as soon as closing happens. Also, please warn your buyers, once you get into contract and you've started the loan process, do not buy anything expensive. And if you have to, like you have to go buy a car during the transaction, consult your lender first, because that will put a major kink in the system and you won't be able to purchase your home if you've got some crazy new purchase on your record. Possession, this is where we're giving them 3 days of possession afterwards. And let's be very clear here, 3 days of possession at noon. That's when we want our possession. And then you'll coordinate key turnover, garage door openers, etc. This is important too, 15.4, debris and personal property. The seller shall remove all debris and personal property not included in this contract by the date and time of possession. So they should not leave trash all over the place. We're not asking for a perfectly cleaned house. We understand where you need to get in there, maybe do some sweeping and some stuff like that. Maybe some patching of some nails on the wall or whatever. But what you shouldn't walk into is a hoarder's home, right? Where there's trash all over the place. This offer is open through tomorrow at 9 a.m. Continuing to scroll down, Rebecca's going to sign here. It's got her name. When you sign in Dotloop, it automatically puts a date on it as well, so you don't need to put the date. This side, the left side is for the buyer. The right side is for the seller. For the sake of time, I'm not going to put in all my information down here. Don't need to worry about it. But if this were a real offer, I would write in all this stuff. I'm not writing in attorneys because typically attorneys aren't involved. If there was one involved, you'd write that in there. And again, you don't need to fill all this other stuff out. It's really unimportant. unless you want to be super thorough. My first couple offers, I wanted to be super thorough, and then I realized there's nobody looks at this stuff. All right. I mentioned I wanted to go back up top. I highly encourage you guys to go through your contract 2 or 3 times before you send it over to your seller or your buyer to sign. Reason being, maybe you fat fingered something. Maybe you forgot to fill something in. You just want to go through it very fine tooth comb type mentality and make sure that everything is done right. A couple things I want to talk about. One of the popular things that people are doing with offers right now are waiving the remedy. What that means is they're still getting an inspection. They still have the right to an inspection, but they're trying to sweeten the pot, like I said, and get the seller to choose their deal versus somebody else. We want to put that verbiage here in the additional terms and conditions. It will auto-populate if you write the right word in there. That word is inspection. It'll auto-populate this clause. This is legalese. You shouldn't really write your own verbiage in here because it's not going to come off professional in most situations, and it may have loopholes. There's no loophole in this. If you click on that, it says literally, it spells it out for us, and we don't have to write it ourselves. It's great. Waiver of remedy request. Buyer waives the right to request the remedy, the seller remedy, repair, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they still reserve the right to an inspection and can terminate the contract if needed. If I couldn't remember what the verbiage was that I needed in here, there's a place that I can go. Dawn and I were writing a contract the other day, and I told her, you need to save frequently. Save in Dotloop frequently because it doesn't auto-save. So you would hate to just waste your last 5 minutes. I'm at the point now, guys, where I can write an offer in about 5 minutes, but your first few offers, it's going to take a while for you to get the hang of it. And so you're going to want to save frequently because I'd hate for you to lose all your work. So once we've saved, then we can go out. This little back button right here is where you're going to go. If I were to need a clause of some sort, one place to go. Up here on this top toolbar, here's my loops. Here's my templates. These are the only 2 icons that I really ever use here. Loops, templates. And it's going to take you a while to remember that. It took me a month or 2 to remember where the heck Tabitha told me to go. As I look on the left side here, these are all for documents that I can add to my loops. So let's say I wanted to add an addendum, meaning after they accepted our contract, they want to add they want to change the name of the seller to be a trust. It happens a lot, actually. That would come in the form of an addendum, and you can find that in the documents. What we're looking for is the clause. When I click clauses, there's a whole bunch that come up here. And the cool thing is we can just copy and paste. So what I'm looking for here is waiving of remedy. Here's that one I was referencing earlier, sale of existing home clause. So if the buyer has to sell their home before they can buy it, you need to copy this, paste it into the we'll just do it. Well, no, I can't copy 2 things, can I? You'd copy this, paste it in, and then edit it. So you'd say they need to sell their home located at, and then the address. So you just cross out the underline here and put your address on or before whatever date you decide on. There's quite a few of them in here, guys, and there's some really good stuff. Escalation clauses are super popular. I'm not going to go into that right now. We've only got 9 minutes left. Here it is, waiver of remedy request. Copy. Copy, and then we're gonna go back to my loops.
Josh, why are they not alphabetized on that? Have you ever noticed that, or you ever asked that question?
I think they are.
No, because it's like escalation clause, waiver,
Looks like they started alphabetized and they decided that was too hard. So they just started throwing some random stuff on there. I don't know. It won't be our problem soon. Okay, then I'm going to go back into the loop that I just created. And then I'm going to find purchase contract. And then I'm going to just copy, or sorry, I already copied, paste that in there. And boom, we're good to go. Once I've put this in though, if I'm going to waive the remedy, and again, your job as the agent is kind of just talk out both sides of your mouth when you're presenting off, when you're trying to convince somebody to write the strongest offer possible. So what you're going to say is, hey, I encourage you to get all these inspections done. And what some people are doing to win homes, wink, wink, is if this house is in decent shape, we might want to buy it kind of as is. So we still get the inspection. We can still walk away if it's bad, but we're not going to ask for anything to be fixed. If we go that route, we need to go back down to where it said inspection time frame. We're still getting the inspection within 7 days, okay? But we're not going to ask for the remedy. So we need to mark this as NA, not applicable. Okay. Once you're done, okay, let's say we're done. Remember, save early and often. We're going to go back out here. I like to submit all my forms at the same time when I'm sending something over to the buyer or the seller, so as to avoid like any emails getting lost, basically. The other thing that always needs to accompany an offer is an agency disclosure form. That's basically saying, I'll pull it up here. It's basically saying who represents who, so there's no confusion. So you type in 14, you type in the address here, yada, yada, yada. You type in her name, yada, yada. My name here, because I'm representing the buyer, and then my brokerage, and then whoever the listing agent is and their brokerage. Unless maybe I am representing both sides, then I would come down here to the third bullet point, and then I would say Josh from this brokerage is a dual agent, which you guys have all learned about in classes. Then you would click sign here, assign it to Rebecca, and then all these other things that say sign here, you can either exit or assign it to no one. Save. Go back. All right, I've got 2 documents now that are done. Let's just call them done, and they're ready for signature. The other thing I like to send over is the proof of, the pre-qualification, pre-approval letter. So in order to add that to my file, to my loop here, I can go up here to add document. So let's assume that I've gotten that email from my buyer with their pre-approval letter, and I saved it to my computer. I can go up here to add document, browse, and find the document on my computer and choose it. Last thing I would say, I always include the property disclosure that is signed. You can find the property disclosure on the listing on this little bar up here under documents. Now this home's older, so it's also got a lead-based paint disclosure. So we're gonna click on that. We're gonna save it to the computer. So file, normally export as PDF. PDFs are the only thing that can be added to a loop. So don't save it as a Word document. It's not gonna save as in the loop. So export as PDF. Then you'd import it into your loop. Just like this, you'd go browse, import it, and then it would show up as RPD. You'd click on it. Let's pretend that this is the RPD. There's a couple things on the RPD that you need to add signatures and initials to. You can do that up here. add initials or add text, add signatures, whatever. You just, let's say you needed to add a initial, boom. Just drag it wherever you need it, drop it, and assign it. It's super simple. But I'm only saying that because I've done it a million times. So that's only on the property disclosure that you have to actually edit it like that. Kind of funky. Once you've got everything filled out though, and you're ready to get it over to your buyer, you just click these bullet points here. Boom, boom, share. It automatically clicks Rebecca. She can sign the documents. I always attach a PDF to the email so that there's something they can click on right from the email. And then I normally add a custom custom message, something like purchase contract and agency form. Please let me know if you have any questions. Always try and end with an exclamation point. More psychology. You want them to feel excited about this. This is an exciting moment. Although it's super stressful, you're there to ease them through this. So as much excitement as you can bring to the table, do so. Oh shit. I just shared this with her on accident. Crap. Now I got to call her and say that was an accident. Anyways, that is a contract. That's Dotloop. That's how you send the stuff. That's how you fill it out. This will be useful for your reference when you have to do it again yourself. I am available to answer your questions when you get ready to do one from a philosophical standpoint. Like I want to talk you through your first offer so that you're writing the best offer possible. Don't think you got to do this on your own. There's some best practices that you need to probably consider.
Hey Josh, so one thing I was wondering is the escalation clause. Are you gonna something that you would want to do one-on-one with somebody, or?
Yeah, it's kind of.
What is your thoughts now?
Basically, I got a minute left here. In an escalation clause, what you're doing is you're saying, I want this house so bad that I'm willing to spend up to this amount, but I'm only going to initially offer this lower amount. If another offer comes in that beats mine, I'm going to beat it by whatever, $1,000 up to my ceiling. So escalation basically is a super strong offer. I love getting escalation clause offers because then I start trying to drive the other homes, or sorry, the other offers prices up so that I can trigger that escalation clause and make more money for my seller.
And Josh, where is that in the templates?
Great question. Great question. Yeah. So on the purchase contract, if you were going to write that in, you would say, see attached escalation clause.
That's additional.
Addendum. You'd save that.
Clauses here.
You go back, you go to your templates, or sorry, add document from the templates. I always use the Columbus Realtors forms. You can either search for it or just go or like hunt for it, or just go up here to search and go escalation. You select this little bullet point here.
Okay.
Copy. Okay. There it is. And what it looks like, it's super simple. It'll auto-populate as well. You put the date. You say, here's the deal. I'm offering this amount. So let's say we're offering $180,000. But if another offer comes in, I want to offer $1,000 more than that other offer, up to $190,000.
Okay.
So the max I'm going to spend is 190, but I'd like to only spend 180. And then once that happens, if we win and let's say the seller does use the escalation clause, then they have to prove by sending the other offer that triggered the escalation clause. Good stuff.
Yes.
All right, guys. Go sell some homes, go buy some homes, go get into contracts, go find some buyers, go find some sellers, be motivated, enjoy the weather, be love, be a light. See y'all.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, guys.